So, hi, I'm Alex. I'm the founder of Interval. I have probably the most slides, so I'm going to go really quickly here. So, TLDR, who am I? It's like a little existential, but my name is Alex, and I am the CEO and founder of Interval. I'm also a software engineer by background, which I think you'll get from the presentation. So, uh, what is Interval? So we're a platform for building internal tools, but it's a platform for engineers by engineers. And so obviously internal tools, it's a big space, but we sort of think of it as like CRUD apps, things to interface with your database, things for your customer support team, that sort of stuff. And so where are we? So we just exited stealth, which is cool. So this is the first time that I'm telling anybody that Interval exists, which I'm quite pleased to do. We've raised $4.4 million in funding from some investors who I hope that you recognize. So I know what you're thinking. This is just another low code internal tool builder. And the good news for you is I wouldn't do that to you. It is not that. What is it? So internal tools is sort of like the first domain that we've picked, but it's the domain that we've picked to apply for a new approach to software development that we're calling front-endless software development. So by analogy, you've all hopefully heard of serverless development. Serverless development is this thing where the servers actually very much exist. It's for building server-driven applications, but you're just not responsible for managing and updating them and all that sort of stuff. And so if you're following along very attentively, front-endless, the front ends exist, but as an engineer, you're just not building, updating, and maintaining them. So I just want to take you through how web apps are built today. So step one, you write some business logic, think database stuff, whatever. Then you're going to wrap it in like a REST or a GraphQL API, something that basically makes it a web service. And then you wire up a UI. So that's something that you're going to do in probably HTML, JavaScript, whatever. And then at the end of it, you get a usable tool, which is cool. And a lot of the internal tool builders, they start at the UI layer. And so what they're doing basically is they're replacing the HTML and the CSS with a drag and drop builder, which does have value, but we have a little bit of a different approach. So in Interval world, you do start with your backend, like business logic, but you plug in the Interval SDK. And the Interval SDK takes care of some really important stuff for you. So the wiring up like the REST and GraphQL API, we actually take care of that. Like it's all handled under the hood. It's an implementation detail. We like to say the wire kind of disappears, so you feel like you're not writing network software, which is cool. And then wiring up the UI, we're like, well, we can actually generate the UI for you from the information that you give us. And then from there, you've got backend code that generates a usable tool, and we think that's pretty cool and cuts out some important steps. So that's probably still a little too abstract. So I'm going to do something insane for founders you should know, and maybe the first. I'm going to do a code demo. Um, so let's just go for it. This is a REST API endpoint written in Express. If you're a software engineer, this should look pretty familiar to you. Basically, what it's doing is it's getting an email address from the body of the request, and then it's calling our database with that email address and deleting the thing by email. It's actually a fine bit of code, but the way you interface with it is through something like curl. And so, like, if you don't wire up a UI, have fun having your customer support team or your ops team or whatever using this. I have tried, it does not go particularly well. So, best of luck to you on that. Interval, the code looks much the same. If you're very attentive, you'll notice that ours is 14 lines of code and that was 15. So there is code savings, but it's not about lines of code. It's about what you get out of the code. So you got the same kind of style of thing here, basically grabbing the email address, but then what happened, and then of course you're making the database call to delete the user or whatnot. What you get out of it is a full web app that anyone on your team can run. And it's got authentication and permissions and all the stuff you'd expect out of like a modern web application. And so you're writing the same amount of code as you would for just a REST API, but you're getting a full app. I've got a minute left. Let's do this thing. Okay, we are based in the Mission. We have a lovely office in the Mission. There's 4 of us. We're all engineers. You can tell it's an engineering-driven culture. But the cool thing is, now that we're out of stealth, like we're ready to take this to beyond just engineers. And so if you would like to come join us and help us with our developer relations, become our first chief of staff, all those sort of roles, we're hiring very aggressively for that. And I would love to talk to you. And of course, if you are an engineer, I'd still love to talk to you as well. Some of the things that we're working on. So what I showed you is our Node SDK. Right now, we only support companies who build in Node, so you can help us build support for Ruby and Python. And then what I showed you was a web app being generated. But the cool thing is the code you write in Interval could be used to generate apps for any platform. And so in a year or two, we hope to see Interval apps running on iPhone, Android, Slack, you name it. So that's it. That's not my slides anymore.